SMU has lived in the margins during its time in the ACC. Rhett Lashlee has been extended during that time. So that means I got high hopes, but even higher expectations for this SMU team in 2026.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to our Wednesday show here on Locked On SMU. I'm Grayson Singleton. Thank you so much for rocking with us today here on this Wednesday, making us your first listen. Our episode today is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on the show today, I'll tell you why I'm buying all the Yannick Smith stock ahead of the 2026 season, and should the ACC follow the other leagues and make a bold statement against NFL players coming back to college. That should be a fascinating discussion that we'll talk about at the end of the show. So make sure you stay tuned all the way through for that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Help us continue to grow this Locked On SMU channel. And let's go ahead and dive into some football here today. Appreciate all you guys rocking with me today. So Rhett Lashlee has left some to be desired late in games. That's very true. It's also very true that man has been extended. And I read this quote in ESPN, and it is a very, very wild one. SMU, this is from an article from Bill Connolly. SMU has played 17 conference games as a member of the ACC and had a chance to win on the final play of every one of them. Rhett Lashlee, I expect more from you this season. I expect more. I mean, look at where SMU could be if they were just a little bit better late in games. I'll take this even a step further. They played in 17 conference games, had a chance to win on the last play of all of them. The Baylor game last year would factor into that as well. So, I mean, that's another such game. And if you are the big money man that you are now, rightly rewarded for what he led SMU to the college football playoff, has pretty much completed the resurrection back to national prominence, got them into a Power 4 conference. They look like a Power 4 conference team, have never looked out of their depth. But now you've been extended. And I see that you've been living in the margins. You've had a chance to win or have won every single game on the last play. You've either won the game or you had a chance to win in the last play. That is coaching. Those last plays, forget the games that they won for a second. Just forget that. That's what got him the extension. But when you get the extension and all of your losses, and there's not very many of them, by the way, like we got to keep a level head of this. There's not that many losses. But of your losses, you have had a chance to win the game on the last play. On the last play. And it's not as if, by the way, that they're winning a lot of games on the last play. A lot of these games they're winning by double digits. Like, go back to last year's ACC run. Right, like they blew out Louisville. Clemson did not come down to the last play. Syracuse did not. Boston College was terrible. So on and so forth. But when they're finding themselves in do or die moments where the coaching can be the part that elevates you to a victory, twice they fell short, and that is responsible for why they didn't play for a conference championship game last year. Okay, so to whom more is given, more is required. And that's what I'm looking at for Rhett Lashlee. Can you start to win these games that are coming down to the very last second? Can you start to win the games where they're hanging in the balance? Can you just find a way to win? And sometimes that just means finding a way to win in the sport of football. NFL coaches talk about this all the time. Sometimes you just have to find a way to win. And it doesn't seem like quite yet, consistently enough, SMU can just find a way to win, even when they don't play their best. Right. Baylor is a good example of that. Wake Forest is exhibit A of that. You got to find a way to win. And that's coaching. That's what I'm looking at for this season is if you're going to get to where you want to go, which is back to the college football playoff, you have to find a way to win those games. because it's not going to be all the way smooth sailing. What if Rhett Lashlee takes this team to South Bend, Indiana, and you play hard, smack people around, just like they're going to smack you around, and you happen to get the ball back, and the score is 23-21 Notre Dame. You've got 45 yards to go in a minute 10 to set up a game-winning field goal. A lot of execution on the players' part is going to be required, obviously. But what about the coach? Does Rhett Lashlee become an elevator? Because he's the big money man now. He's been extended. Rightfully so. SMU's athletic department and SMU's administration has said, you are our guy. Deservedly so. No argument with that. But can you now become a dude that elevates over elite competition? That elevates even when your team isn't executing at the highest level. The guy that elevates schematically, managerially, timely to get a win that either A, you were out-talented in, or B, you didn't deserve to get. Those are the ones that I'm looking at Rhett and say, that's coaching. That's coaching. The other part to this is also true. Sometimes they're just bad at finishing games. And the Wake Forest, Baylor, and Cal losses last year were all bad finishes for different reasons, right? They all three had something very different. Now, I'm excluding the TCU game because that's just a game they got thoroughly outplayed in, just to keep it a buck. So that doesn't really factor into this conversation. They just got straight up beat. But those three other losses last year, the Baylor game, couldn't finish on defense. I mean, just ran out of gas and could not figure out how to get pressure on Sawyer Robertson. The other parts of that is that the time management and situational play calling was not there. That's coaching. Wake Forest game, Rhett's worst offensive output of his tenure here at SMU. A lot of that had to do with coaching, even though the players didn't play good. How in the hell did you continue to let Cal just walk up and down the field and score with no adjustments? I know Scott Simons was the DC. Rhett's above it all. He's the head coach. That comes down to coaching. They did not finish last year. Can SMU finish in tight games? They're going to have some tight games. I think Notre Dame potentially could be tight. Louisville potentially could be tight. And you get them at the beginning of the year this year, so they're likely not going to be all the way banged up like they were a season ago. Can Rhett's coaching elevate SMU and help SMU finish out games that are going to be won and lost in the margins? Back to ESPN. SMU has played 17 conference games as a member of the ACC and had a chance to win on the final play of every single one of them. Louisville has lost 8 games in the past 2 years. 7 were by one score. There's all you need to know to set up the matchup between Rhett Lashlee and Jeff Brom. One that could decide who goes to the ACC championship game, presumably to play Miami if all goes to plan. And that could also be one where you look at a potential for berth in the college football playoff. There's a lot on the line between those two teams that play really, really well and win and sometimes lose in the margins. Jeff Brom's noted as a very good coach. Rhett Lashlee the same. Administration gave him the extension. Now, can he be an elevator of his team and get his team to a couple wins, even some on the road, where A, they're maybe out-talented, and B, they may not have deserved it? So that's what I'm looking at for Rhett Lashlee this year. Coming up next on Locked On SMU, I am buying all the stock in one of Rhett's new wide receivers, Yannick Smith, the ECU transfer. Oh yeah, give me all of this. I'll tell you why next. There are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. You got games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding what you want to attend. It's actually getting the tickets. Between the long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings opportunities that help you get to the events you want without the usual hassle. And everybody is going to have a good time when you use Game Time. Whether it's taking my girlfriend to trips, to events, whether it's taking my family to events. We use the seat view finder on Game Time to make sure we know that we're going to be able to have a good view of the playing surface before I buy the tickets. And also the upfront pricing gives everybody involved no surprises at all. It is outstanding. I recommend Game Time 1000%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Game Time app today. All right, let's go. Welcome back to Locked On SMU. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Still trying to grow this channel, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Recommend this account to all of your friends as well. Let's grow this SMU community as we get ready for football season. And more stock that I'm buying. I'm going to buy the Yannick Smith stock. Now, I know this is 2 days in a row where we've talked about wide receiver. You got to be thinking, okay, wait, does Grayson actually just think all of our wide receivers can win a Biletnikoff? No. No. But I'm buying the Yannick Smith stock. I really, really am. And there's multiple ways I can break this down. Number one, what I've heard from camp. This is a big physical freak that's just really damn good. I mean, let's just start with the very, very simple stuff. He looks like a monster out there. And he's actually really good. Very physical. I think I'll make a prediction to you. He's going to be SMU's most physical and physically imposing wide receiver. Now, you can look at the roster and tell that. Dude is listed at 6'2", 208 pounds. All right, cool. But you see the way he plays. You see the ferocity with which he attacks the football. I remember this summer, about a month ago, we had wide receivers coach Rob Likens on the show. And I asked him, what attracts you to wide receivers in the portal, and you evaluate certain targets and which guys you want to pursue? And Rob Likens says, the first thing that stands out to me on tape is how you attack the football. And if you watch Yannick Smith's tape at East Carolina, he attacks the football as if it's a baby of his own falling from a 12-story apartment. He's going to go catch that football. So you combine that with just the sheer size of him, that's somebody that I could buy a lot of stock in. He's a good route runner, too. Good mover. He's a great mover for his size. Like, you don't think about guys that size being guys that just get in and out of breaks, can be very shifty. Yannick Smith could be that guy. So, like, is he gonna make highlight films, routing guys up? Probably not. He's probably not going to go out here throwing defenders 5 yards that way while he's going the other way. Like, we're not going to see him on a Devontae Adams type of route running tape. But he can get in and out of breaks, create separation, big frame. I like that right off rip. And then, of course, the 6'2", 208 ain't bad. The second reason why I'm buying all the Yannick Smith stock is because I am very high on this. I'm very high on progression and promotion. What do I mean by that? Well, Yannick Smith, in his first 2 seasons, he's a junior. Yannick Smith's first 2 seasons at East Carolina, he played a lot of football. Reading through this, during his freshman season, played in all 13 games. And he played in 509 total snaps. I like that. Freshman getting a lot of burn. 25 passes caught for 334. That's 17 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. Okay, I like that. Give me all of that. 13 games, 500 snaps as a freshman. I like that. Sophomore, 11 games. 44 catches, 583 yards, 5 touchdowns. So you extrapolate that over a 13-game period. You're looking at around 50 catches for about 680, almost 700 yards. I like that. So you see the progression. And now he obviously would have been due for an even bigger role had he stayed, but he had a lot of interest in the P4 with that size, with that production. And he obviously made the promotion to the Power 4. So we've seen the progression, then we see the promotion. Now we're going to see the payoff. The 3 Ps. Because I think as people grow, they know they're ready for a promotion to where they are. So I'm going to trust the circle of life here and say, all right, I see the progression from freshman year to sophomore year, and I can project to the junior year. God, I'm using a lot of P words right now. Holy smokes. But you see the progression from the freshman to sophomore year. You get the promotion for the junior year. It's likely to predict, and very easy to predict, that we're going to see the payoff this year for SMU. Now, what does that mean? Again, there's a lot of mouths to feed in this SMU offense. So the numbers may not say that Yannick Smith got better. Need I remind you, too, that numbers don't always tell the whole story. Injuries aside, Odell Beckham could have become one of the best wide receivers ever in the NFL had he not gotten hurt. Look at his first 3 years, compare that to the first 3 years of a lot of other wide receivers. The dude had like 700 receiving yards his final season at LSU, but they're like, nope, that's the number 12 pick in the draft. So the numbers don't always tell the whole story. And if you look at this SMU setup here, you have tight ends worthy of catching the football. You have an RPO-based scheme, which means you're going to run the football. And aside from Yannick Smith, you got about 4 other wide receivers that will command playing time. So the numbers may not look gaudy. Like this may not be a, catch 65 balls for 850 yards. That may not be what this is for Yannick Smith. We still don't really even know who the de facto number 1 is. And Kevin Jennings also already has a go-to chemistry when the going gets tough with a man named Yamir Knight. So the numbers may not be as gaudy. Maybe they do. Maybe they do look gaudy at the end of the year. But the impact's going to be there. The big playability is going to be there. The hands are going to be there. The red zone effectiveness has a chance to be there. That's what I'm buying into. I'm not necessarily buying into stats that are going to set the world on fire. I'm buying into when his numbers call, when the ball is thrown in his direction, Yannick Smith's going to make a play 9 out of 10 times. So that's what I'm looking for when it comes to Yannick Smith. And I think he's capable, and I think he's ready to make a play like that. That's why I'm buying all this Yannick Smith stock. That's why I'm buying the stock on Yannick Smith. I get a dude who has played a lot of football. 2 years he's appeared in 24 games. And I mean 2 years straight out of high school too. 3 years straight out of high school. 3 years of varsity football in high school. I like dudes that have played a lot of football. I know this isn't a quarterback position, but I still like dudes who've played a lot of football, especially guys who played a lot of football early. So he's been getting a lot of run, 500 snaps in his freshman year. Obviously played in 11 games in 2025 as a sophomore. I like his timeline. I like his size. I like what I continue to hear about him in camp. And I think this dude's going to be a very, very good player for SMU. And again, you're in a receiver room with Jalen Hale and Yamir Knight and Jalen Cooper. And then there's going to be young guys behind them that are going to get some situational burn as well. Tight ends are going to command. Like, they've put together a very well-rounded wide receiver tight end room to complement quarterback and running back. I really think these wide receivers are going to make plays. Again, by the way, SMU with banged-up wide receivers and a banged-up quarterback last year. Mentioned this on yesterday's show. Banged-up quarterback, banged-up wide receivers. SMU still the second-best passing offense in the conference. What could they do if everybody's healthy and they're better and they're bigger? Just a thought. Just going to throw that out there. All right, coming up next, one more segment, Locked On SMU. Should the ACC take a stance on NFL players? They're the only power conference that has not issued something at the time of this recording. So we'll talk about that to close up the show coming up next on Locked On SMU. All right, let's run to the finish line here on a Wednesday. Let's talk some college football news. Should the ACC issue a statement against NFL players coming back to college football? Now, The SEC, Big Ten, and the Big 12 have all issued statements. They're all set to pass some rules that will prohibit this. Will that even stand? Likely not. Because also, didn't the courts say that they can go back and play? So, yeah. I don't know if the power conferences supersede the courts. Anyway, we'll get back to that in a second. But should the ACC do this? I think the answer is yes. They should do this. Now, again, those of you that have followed me are probably going to sense conflicting opinions here, and I understand that. But I think every situation deserves its proper context. All right. Do you want NFL players coming back to college? No. None of us wants that. Not even the most pro player of talking heads like myself. No, we don't want that. None of us do. Do I think the exception should be made for this year because of how slowly the NCAA rolled out the 5-to-play-5 rule and then later said, oh yeah, let's go ahead and include all the players from the 2022 class, which I thought was just hilariously stupid the way they did that? Yes, an exception should be made for that. Should also the conferences all act in unison to promote the better of college football? The answer to that question is also yes. I've said this before time and time again on this show. And I've said this on this show. I've said it on my radio shows here in Norman, Oklahoma. You have 4 different conferences that all seem to be pulling in different directions. Even the 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, who seem to be pulling in the same direction, they have a split at certain things, namely the college football playoff. All right? So it's 4 different voices pulling in 4 different directions. Brett Yormark, Greg Sankey, Jim Phillips, Tony Petitti, the Power 4 commissioners, all pulling in different directions. If we can get some unison in something, I think this is a good sign. We need the unison. So to me, that overrides the need for an exception to the new rule that you don't want NFL players coming back. Again, anybody in the 2022 high school recruiting class, I believe, should be eligible. I think it was stupid that they were not immediately made eligible after the passage of 5-to-play-5. I don't know how that slipped through everybody's head. I think it is absurd that we're at this point. And I still think that needs to happen. Whether or not you've been in an NFL training camp, played in a preseason game or not, I do not care. That exception should be made. But if the conferences are saying, nope, we're not doing this, I would like all of them to do so. And look, would this just be very good, like straight up too? This is the cynical side of me. Would this basically just straight up be the perfect PR scenario? Yes. Yes, this would be a PR thing. All right? This would be a thing that you do just because it looks good. Because quite frankly, my view of the conferences does not change one way or the other. Like, I would still have been cool with the Big Ten had they never released a statement and then passed a rule. I would not have judged the Big Ten one bit if they did not do that. SEC, Big 12, ACC, same thing. Because I do believe that they should be allowed to come back if they so choose. Because the opportunity was not there. Now it presents itself. And again, it's another abject failure of leadership that has led to this point. But if I can get some semblance, just give me something, right? Just give me some way to believe that college football still has entities all pulling in the same direction, which clearly they do not. But if you can give me one reason to at least halfway believe it and try to talk myself into, dumbing myself down into being naive to believe that there are 4 voices that are pulling in one direction, give it to me. Give it to me. Especially, by the way, because we know that it's going to get struck down by the courts. That's the hilarious thing about it. The courts aren't going to leave this alone. Because the players are going to sue. And if the courts say, hey, any member of the 2022 class is eligible, that means any member of the 2022 class, regardless of where their path has taken them since they were at one point told that they were ineligible. Right? And look, here's the hilarity of the entire situation. The 5-to-play-5 rule did not supersede any pre-existing court orders, which means that there are still people from the 2021 recruiting class and beyond that are going to play college football this season. Anybody else forget about that part? Right? Like here at Oklahoma, there are 2 players for the Sooners. One is in his 7th year of college. Another got a court order because he didn't want a year of lacrosse to count against him, that are going to be playing. One was in the 2021 class. That was the lacrosse kid. The other is in his 7th year of college. And that's going on around the country. Those examples I bring up because that's the team I cover on a day-to-day basis. But there are still people playing 6th and 7th years of college sports. Okay? That has not been completely eradicated. So for people to stand on some moral high ground and say, no, we're doing this the right way, get the hell up out of here with that. Okay? Like, that's never existed in college football. So, the point in all that is, do we want the ACC to release this statement to show that there is some unity left in college football? I would like it. Do I know it probably is going to amount to much of nothing? Yeah. Uh-huh. And I'm good with it. Straight up, I'm good with it. Because there are court orders galore all over the country. Court orders galore all over the country that are allowing people even beyond the 2022 recruiting class to play. The leadership failed these athletes in the class of 2022 because they didn't give them this option before they had to make the choice. Well, I got to go pro because I have no other option. And now college football is trying to stand on its moral high horse and say, no, you played in professionally. You can't come back. Miss me with that. You guys screwed it up. Stop me when you've heard that before. You guys screwed it up. Let them come back. Stop standing on your moral high horse. Allow an exception just for this 1 year because it's the right thing to do, which also the NCAA is kind of allergic to doing. And quit this facade that college football, we're trying to make sure it stays in its purest form. Like, no, miss me with that. Miss me with that. So should the ACC release a statement and make a rule? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Give us some unity. But ultimately, these rules, at least for this year, are the wrong decision. Going forward, yes. Going forward, you don't want this happening. But because of the timeline of events that occurred this summer, let these dudes play. Let these dudes play. They're still in the age range. They're clearly still in the skill range because they're being cut by NFL teams. So you're not getting a crazy advantage over anybody. Let these dudes play, man. There is one argument and one argument only against letting these guys come back from NFL training camps. Okay? There's one solid argument, and Kirby Smart made it yesterday. I don't want to disadvantage the dudes who have been here working their tails off by allowing somebody else to jump back in and take their spot ahead of them. That is the only good faith argument that exists here. Everything else is petitioning and positing for a moral superiority that does not exist. Let these guys play. All right, that'll do it for Locked On SMU here today on this Wednesday edition. Hell of a show today, man. Hope you guys subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends, grow this channel with me as well. Thanks for tapping in with us, making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, check our 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure you tap in with Spencer McLaughlin's Locked On College Football for your next listen. We'll see you guys tomorrow. It's a Thursday edition of the show on Locked On SMU, coming your way in 24 hours. I'm Grayson Singleton. We'll see you.